morning, class.
Good morning.
How are you guys doing today? Good. All right, class. So today we have an exciting topic that we're going to learn about. We are learning about vaccinations. Specifically, we're learning about influenza. Does anybody know about influenza? Have you heard about influenza or vaccinations? Yes.
Isn't it a vacuum?
No, but that's okay. Anybody else?
Is it something you can pass?
No, that was a good try, but that's okay. How about you?
Is it something that's to do with a donut?
No, but that was we'll learn about that. That's okay.
Doesn't the president get them?
No, but those were all really good, guys. Those were really good. But let me tell you what a vaccination actually is.
A vaccine or a vaccination is a biological preparation that provides active immunity to a particular disease. The word derives from cow in Latin, meaning vaca. The three most common vaccines are influenza, which is known as our flu shots, the polio vaccine, and the MMR vaccine, which kills measles, mumps, and rubella. Vaccines are required in all 50 states for kids of younger ages entering school, mainly to prevent the spread of disease to the younger kids with the weaker immune systems. Statistics show that 332 million cases of childhood illness were prevented between 1994 to 2014. In 1855, Massachusetts passed the first U.S. law requiring school entry vaccines. Smallpox was the first disease which produced a vaccine discovered by Edward Jenner in 1796. And most common vaccines side effects are swelling, fatigue, shivering, headache, muscle, and joint pain.
There are two main types of influenza or flu viruses. So types A and B, the influenza A and B viruses that routinely spread in people, which is like human influenza viruses, are responsible for seasonal flu epidemics each year. And the influenza A viruses can be broken down into subtypes depending on the genes that make up the surface proteins. And over the course of a flu season, different types, both A and B, and subtypes, influenza A, of influenza circulate and cause illness. And there are four types of influenza viruses, A, B, C, and D. Human influenza A and B viruses cause seasonal epidemics of disease almost every winter in the United States, and the emergence of a new and very different influenza virus, which is A, to infect people, can cause an influenza pandemic. Influenza type C infections generally cause a mild respiratory illness and are not thought to cause epidemics, and the influenza D viruses primarily affect cattle and are not known to infect or cause illness in people. A virus that we have heard about in the past, which is H1N1 or swine flu, as it's most commonly known, was first caused widespread illness in Mexico and the United States in March and April 2009. And though Mexico may have not been in the midst of the epidemic some months before, the first case in the United States was confirmed by the CDC on April 15, 2009. So flu symptoms, which she stated before, are ear pain that lasts more than 24 hours or severe ear pain that lasts longer than 1 hour, a sore throat that lasts longer than 2 to 3 days despite home treatment and does not act like a cold, sinus pain that persists despite 2 to 4 days of home treatment, especially if nasal drainage is colored rather than clear and fever is also present, and nasal drainage that changes from clear to colored after 5 to 7 days of the flu. So while other symptoms such as sinus pain or fever may present that as well, these are getting worse. A cough that lingers more than 7 to 10 days after other symptoms have cleared, especially if it is bringing up mucus, and yellow-green, rust-colored, or bloody mucus that is coughed up from the lungs, especially while other symptoms are getting worse. And this mucus coughed up from the lungs is a more serious symptom than mucus that is drained down the back of the throat, which is postnasal drip.
So now I'm going to give you guys a little story, a little example about a girl I knew way back in the day that had influenza. So here we go. So there was a girl that I knew, and she was going to a concert, and her biggest, ultimate favorite artist was Beyonce. So she was getting ready at night to go see Beyonce, and nothing could stop her. So she gets to the concert. She has floor seats. She was right in front. It was amazing. So Beyonce comes on stage, and Beyonce actually touches her hand. She was ecstatic. She said nothing could ruin her night. It was the best night of her life, right? So she starts to feel a little woozy, a little sleepy, a little dizzy. But she figured, oh, it's nighttime. I'm tired. I didn't get a lot of sleep. I'll be better by the morning. So the next morning comes, and she wakes up, and now she has a runny nose, and she has a cough. So she thinks, oh, maybe I got a little sick. Maybe someone sneezed last night, and it got on me. So she goes about her business, and the next day, the exact next day, she wakes up, and she's throwing up. She feels nauseous. Everything's everywhere. She's having bowel movements that aren't normal for her. There was a lot, if you know what I mean. And she was just crying. Her eyes were watering. She couldn't deal with it. So she calls the hospital, and she takes an ambulance to the hospital. Later, the hospital calls her parents. Her parents rush over to the hospital to see what's going on, to make sure that everything's okay. So her parents get there, and they see her on a ventilator. And her parents are like, oh my goodness, what happened to my daughter? I have no idea. This can't be happening. What did you do? So the doctors talk to the parents and start asking questions about how she was doing, what's going on. And her parents said, well, she was complaining about, pain in her arms and her legs, kind of weakness and stiffness throughout her entire body. She was very lazy. She didn't want to do anything. And she had a runny nose, a cough, all of that, all of the symptoms. So the doctor goes back into his little laboratory, runs some tests, and comes back to the parents. And the parents the parents find out that she has influenza. She was crying. She was devastated. She was like, how did I get influenza? I don't know. The doctor, this is the sketchy part. The doctor said, did you touch anyone? She said, I touched Beyonce. So Beyonce might have had influenza, but that's just between us. Anyways, she has to stay in the hospital for about 7-8 days, and they kept her on the ventilator. Then she had to regain her strength, so she had to get some vitamin C, some banana, some potatoes, some meat, all of that. And then she was able to go home. But that is what happens when you get influenza, and that is one of the many ways that you can contract influenza. So now we're going to talk about how to prevent influenza.
Okay, so there are many ways to prevent influenza. The first way is to avoid close contact. So the people that are sick should avoid close contact with the civilians. The people who are non-sick should avoid close contact with the people who are. The second way is to stay home. So if you're sick, if you are suddenly realizing that you're sneezing a lot or you're coughing, you should stay home, stay in bed, relax, drink some tea, and maybe it'll blow over, hopefully. Next, you should always cover your mouth and nose so that anyone else in your house will not get sick by maybe sneezing on your blanket or coughing like in the air, because it's such a close environment that any of your family members could get sick. Next, make sure you always clean your hands. Maybe Beyonce wouldn't have passed this on to her fan if she would have cleaned her hands before she performed. Also, avoid touching your eyes, nose, and mouth, because that can easily get irritated and you don't want that to happen. Lastly, practice good health habits like cleaning your linen and cleaning your clothes that you may have infected as well. Those are the ways to prevent getting influenza.
Now, here are some of the most common symptoms of influenza. They include joint aches, high fever, sore throat, etc. Next, we have a diagram of the ways to prevent influenza. So there are many ways to prevent the virus that include exercising, drinking water, and the biggest one, which is washing your hands, of course. Here are some of the common myths about influenza. First is that the flu shot can give you the flu. That is not true. The flu shot is only helping you to prevent you from getting the flu. Another myth is that you should be waiting to get vaccinated so that you're covered throughout the end of the season. That's not true, because you can get the flu at any point. that people often do is that they often confuse the flu with the cold. So here are just a few distinctions to help you figure out which one that you have.
Okay, class, so that is everything that you guys need to know about vaccinations and influenza. So can each of you tell me what you guys learned from today's lesson? Yes.
I learned to be careful of your surroundings and always realize who you're around to make sure that they're not sick also.
Wonderful.
I learned the symptoms of influenza.
Beautiful.
I learned that in all 50 states it's required to get a vaccination before school.
Wow, excellent.
I learned that a way to prevent influenza is by washing your hands.
Magnificent. Well, I'm glad you guys learned something new, and don't get influenza, guys, okay? Class dismissed.